Good evening, everybody, and you are very warmly welcome to Christ Church Bray this evening as we gather for our 11th Classics by Candlelight. How wonderful it is to be able to have this concert tonight. How strange it is not to have the usual standing ovation just for me entering into the room. So it's all very different and yet wonderfully familiar tonight. We welcome you. We welcome you whether you've come from far or near, whether you're watching from overseas or from the warmth and comfort of your living room. We join in this concert tonight to celebrate the season of Advent and the preparation for Christmas. But also we want to do something very special this year. We are very conscious that our friends in Purple House are shining a light every day of every year as they support and encourage people who are going through particularly tough times. So instead of charging you for this event, we've encouraged you to make donation, and you have. Already well over €1,500 has been raised for Purple House, for which we thank you. But keep donating if you haven't got to it yet over the coming days. Tonight's concert is very special to us on a number of reasons. First of all, it is one family. It is the Harte family joining us tonight, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But also, it is a night when we remember, with our association with Purple House, those whom we've loved and lost a while. This year we've lost a number of our friends and parishioners to cancer, and we dedicate tonight's concert to all of them. But we're noting in particular our beloved Val Philp, our beloved Anne Dixon, and our beloved Betty Shields, all remembered with love in this place, as are all who we have loved and lost a while. We are a parish and a community of many abilities and diversity of gifts, so it is wonderful when those gifts coalesce together and create the wonder that you will experience tonight, because this is one family. Francis, Sheila, Rosie and Edward will perform tonight and will lift our hearts as we soar into the heavens to enjoy this season of Advent and as we prepare for the birth of the Christ child. Enjoy. Here's Sheila.
Hello and welcome to our 11th Classics by Candlelight. That was the prelude from the first suite for solo cello by Johann Sebastian Bach, held by many to be the greatest composer of all. He lived from 1685 to 1750, and his cello suites are at the heart of every cellist's repertoire. We'll be hearing some more from Bach later. Well, like much else in 2020, this year's Classics by Candlelight is a very different affair to all the previous years. It seems surprising to think that that our first one was way back in 2010. But unfortunately, it's not quite the same this year. Not only are we without you, our audience, we're also without David and Elaine Clark, our two friends on the violin who make this event possible every year. We have diversified here and there, as many of you will know, but this event has always centred around the repertoire of the string quartet. But the current situation has meant that it's been impossible for us to get together to rehearse. So this year, you're stuck with us. We have managed to drag in a couple of dodgy characters to help us, namely our two children, Rosie and Edward. They're pretty impossible to rehearse with too, but that's for different reasons. So, in fact, actually, Edward could only be persuaded to do this on the condition that he was allowed to wear his Christmas jumper. So, anyway, soldiering on, Sheila and I are now going to play you some Beethoven. This year marks the 250th anniversary of Ludwig van Beethoven's birth. We're going to play a piece with a bit of a quirky title called Duett mit zwei obligaten Augengläsern in E-flat major. In other words, the eyeglass duo. Beethoven was known in his own day as much for his dazzling piano playing as for his composing, but he also played the viola, sensible chap. The eyeglass duo was written to be played by Beethoven and his friend Baron Nikolaus Smeskal von Domenowicz, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, a talented amateur cellist. It is generally assumed that Beethoven wrote or intended to write a full 4-movement work, but only 2 movements survive. We're going to play the first movement. Beethoven treats both instruments equally, passing musical material back and forth, and the title, Mit zwei obligaten Augengläsern, refers to the fact that both men were obliged to wear glasses as they played. And I actually realised just this morning that this was probably a particular issue when playing this piece, because unless you have someone to turn the page, there's nowhere to do it, because we're always playing. Well, you can see the problem. As I've been waffling here, Sheila has hopefully contrived some kind of arrangement for minimal page turns. I hope that I can actually read the far end of the music there, so I should have gone to Specsavers. So here's Beethoven's Eyeglass Duo. Oh, thank goodness that's right. That was quite a long way away to see, actually. But right, we are going back in time now to George Philipp Telemann. He was a German composer who lived from 1681 to 1767, and so was a close contemporary of J.S. Bach. Edward is going to play a movement from one of his Fantaisie pour le clavecin, or Fantasias for the harpsichord. He wrote lots of these, and they were written to illustrate the differences between the fashionable French and Italian styles of the day. Edward is going to play the first movement from the Fantasia in G minor by George Philipp Telemann, which, for those of you who are interested, is written in the Italian style. Thank you, Edward. Stay there. Brilliant. Right, okay, so Edward's next piece, where are we? He is next going to, we're actually going to jump forward to the early 20th century. Jacques Ibert was a French composer who lived from 1890 to 1962. Le Petit Ogne Blanc, I hope I've pronounced that correctly, The Little White Donkey, is the second piece from Histoire, or Stories, a collection of 10 pieces that dates from 1922. It has a three-part structure, so A, B, A. The first section is built on what is called an ostinato, in the bass. An ostinato is a musical term for a short, constantly repeated figure, and in this piece obviously represents the donkey trudging along the dusty path. You will hear this in Edward's left hand. There are soft little donkey noises, which often interrupt in the right hand. In the middle section, the music changes slightly. It sounds like the donkey's getting a bit fed up, and he's just generally getting a bit grumpy, and you hear lots of eeyores, and then the patient trudging comes back again, and there's a brief reference back to the grumpiness just before it finishes abruptly with a couple of eeyores. So this is The Little White Donkey by Jacques Ibert. Thank you, Edward. I love that piece. I think it's really cool. Right. So, where are we? Right. I've had a complete mental blank. Bach cello suites. As I mentioned before, form the backbone of every cellist's repertoire. But until the early 1900s, they were little known, and it was generally assumed that they were studies, written for private practice rather than for performance. The suites are made up of short movements which are all dances, bearing French names, although of course Bach was German. Names such as gavotte or sarabande, minuet, usually finishing up energetically with a gig, which in English is a jig. So Rosie is going to play the two bourrées, which is a lively dance, the two bourrées from the third suite. You will hear bourrée 1 and then bourrée 2, and then bourrée 1 is repeated again. So again, a piece with an A-B-A structure. So hopefully Rosie will be along soon, and we'll get going. Here she is. Right, mind to stay. Right, wasn't that super? So, for our next piece, we're going to hear something by the composer Felix Mendelssohn. Born in 1809 in Hamburg into a wealthy Jewish family, the young Felix Mendelssohn was a boy prodigy at the piano and organ, as well as composition. He wrote his famous orchestral overture to Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream at the age of just 16. Arguably not even child prodigies Mozart or Schubert produced such brilliant music at such an age. He went on to write many famous and well-loved symphonies, concertos and choral works. He is the composer of the tune of Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and of course everyone knows his famous Wedding March. Interestingly too, we have Mendelssohn to thank for rescuing the music of J.S. Bach from oblivion in the early 19th century with his revival of Bach's St. Matthew Passion in Leipzig. Well, Rosie and Sheila are now going to play Mendelssohn's beautiful Song Without Words for cello and piano. Mendelssohn actually wrote 48 songs without words for the piano, but this one for the cello and piano stands alone and was published separately after the composer's death, aged only 38, in 1847. Right. I love that. It's lovely, isn't it? Okay, so thank you, Rosie and Sheila. So, a little more Bach now, developing a theme here. Sheila is going to play you the first prelude from... The prelude from the Well-Tempered Clavier. Now, I know that sounds a bit like a piano that's in a good mood, the Well-Tempered Clavier, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Clavier in German is a sort of general term for piano, but this piece was written in 1722, so it actually refers to any of the keyboard instruments of the day, so the harpsichord or the clavichord or possibly even the organ. The well-tempered bit of the title refers to the new way of tuning the instrument. They had lots of different ways of tuning keyboard instruments in those days, what we call equal temperament tuning, where all the semitones and tones of the piano are exactly equal divisions of the octave. That was coming in around this time, and this meant you could now play in all the different keys. Before this, the further you had got away from the original key, the more and more sharps or flats you added, the more woefully out of tune the piece sounded. So you had to kind of go away and retune for each key that you played in, so it didn't really work very well. So now with the new system, you could play through all of the different keys and you could roam around more freely through the keys. And so in sort of celebration of this fact, I suppose, Bach wrote 24 of these preludes and fugues, one for each of the different major and minor keys. And then he obviously liked it so much that he did the whole thing again, because he wrote a second book. So there are 48 of these anyway, and this is the very, very first one in C major, so a nice easy key. Sheila's going to play now for you. Okay? So, enjoy. Right. Now, one of the problems of this concert with lots of smaller items, and I keep walking off and leaving this behind, is I don't know what's coming next. So I brought my viola just in case, and luckily I did, because it's me. So, right, well, you should be nice and relaxed now. Next, we're going to revisit the music of Bach's contemporary, George Philip Telemann. Now, Edward played you something by him earlier on. I'm going to play you part of Telemann's first Fantasia for the violin, published in Hamburg in 1735. Here it has been transcribed for the viola, so basically it's the same music being played a fifth lower. This is probably a good moment to remind some of you, or perhaps tell any of you that don't know, that this is a viola. It's actually, it's a bit like a slightly overgrown violin, and it plays a fifth lower. Actually, the viola is probably the older instrument, but the violin was kind of standardized to some extent in the 1600s by makers like Stradivari, while the viola continues to come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. That's partly because it can be very awkward to play because of its size, especially for smaller players, and though there are plenty of exceptions in general, the larger the viola, the richer the sound it will make. And when you consider the size of a viola compared with a cello, and it sits directly between the range of a violin and the cello, you can see that we're at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of size. Anyway, I've got my excuses in now, so actually it's what gives the viola its distinctive tone quality. So here, or there on the stand, is Telemann's Fantasia No. 1, or the first two movements, for violin on the viola. Next, Sheila is going to join me. It's me. I was going to have a rest. Next, Sheila is going to join me to play you something by the contemporary Estonian composer Arvo Pärt. Arvo Pärt first gained recognition in the 1960s, and as part of the avant-garde, he encountered difficulties with the Soviet authorities, forcing him to emigrate to Vienna and Berlin. He resettled in Estonia 10 years ago. He's now 85 and continues to compose. This is one of his most popular pieces and was written in 1978. It's been used in innumerable films and television programs, documentaries, so you may have heard it before. It's called Spiegel im Spiegel, which translates as Mirror in the Mirror. And the title isn't simply an evocative one. It is evocative, but it actually reflects, literally, this very strict compositional formula that Pärt uses. The music is extremely simple and bare. Initially, the melody consists of only 2 notes. Another note is added with each successive phrase, and each ascending melodic line is followed or reflected by a corresponding descending one. That sounds pretty dry, but the effect is fairly hypnotic. So, Spiegel im Spiegel by Arvo Pärt. So, after that, to rouse you from your stupor, we're going to have Edward to give us a blast on Christchurch's magnificent organ. So, he is going to play you some, guess who? J.S. Bach. This time, a prelude and fugue. Now, the fugue is the ultimate tour de force in musical academia. They can be extremely complex. Fugues are contrapuntal. Contrapuntal or counterpoint means note against note, meaning the music is conceived as horizontal lines. Harmony occurs as a consequence of these tightly wrought horizontal lines. So fugues are the most rigorous of all contrapuntal works and usually adhere to certain strict rules. Bach was not a slave to these rules, however. In fact, it is from Bach's music that the academic rules, so-called, of so many compositional techniques were established. Anyway, the fugue that Edward will play comes after the prelude, so about halfway through what he's going to play, and begins with a simple phrase by itself. This is the subject of the fugue. You will then hear successive entries of this subject in first the manuals, and then in the pedals, and then it's developed elaborately. So, hope you enjoy it. Thank you, Edward. So, next, Rosie and Sheila are going to perform a piece that I absolutely love. Walking in the Air from The Snowman. Now, I'm afraid my geeky side is going to come out now. I love The Snowman. The film was made in 1982, and I don't think there has been a Christmas since I first saw The Snowman that I haven't watched it. But I have to tell you that I can claim an even earlier connection than that. Raymond Briggs' The Snowman, the book on which the film was later based, came out in 1978, and I won a colouring competition in the Southampton Evening Echo, and my prize was a hardback copy of it, and I still have it on the shelf. Yep, so I'm truly a snowman geek. But seriously, the simple beauty of the story, a little more elaborate in the film, but the artwork also beautifully done and then described in Howard Blake's music makes, I think, a real masterpiece. Actually, Aled Jones is the one always remembered for singing Walking in the Air. I think it has some connection with a Christmas advert for Toys R Us, but the singer in the film was a boy chorister called Peter Orty, and he is now actually a well-known tenor, and he's actually come in to sing quite a few times with the RTE National Symphony Orchestra, so it was great to see him doing that. So, Walking in the Air by Howard Blake. Right. Gosh, isn't that lovely? Right, well, we're nearly done. So thank you for tuning in. I must say, having seen the test recordings the other day, what it's been possible to send out to you, I hope you viewers out there, as far exceeds anything that we thought was possible. And for that, we have to thank Noel Dicker, who is the man in charge of all of this stuff here. It's absolutely fantastic, so thank you, Noel. we hope you've enjoyed this year's Classics by Candlelight. Hopefully we'll be back to normal next year. I'm definitely feeling like the usual mulled wine and mince pies now, that's for sure. So, so we're doing all right there. We're going to round off. We can't, of course, do our Christmas carol medley, but I think we can maybe just justify jamming in one little carol, since we're already into Advent, aren't we? It is December tomorrow, so. Right. God rest ye merry when we're ready. I should have planned a longer talky bit for this, shouldn't I? Right. Nothing like spontaneity, eh?
Folks, just to say how blessed we have all been tonight in this concert. It's been wonderful on so many levels, but I have to say, and it comes to me every year, how each member of your family steps into themselves as you perform. It's just a talent, it's a gift, but it's part of who you are. And we just want to say such a huge thank you. Edward, Rosie, Sheila and Francis, thank you so much. They're applauding in their thousands out there, but you have moved us. You really have. You've moved us tonight. And I've watched the air crystallize in front of you with the cold air in here, and all these people warm and snug at home. And normally we'd be saying to everybody, you know, have your mince pies, have your mulled wine, but really just have your Advent, your time of preparation. We have gifts for you to celebrate your gifts, but I can't give them to you because I can't come that close to you. So I look after them for you and take care of them until you need them or until the whole pandemic passes. Or you could just collect them from the St. Paul's side chapel on the way past. I think you'll work out which is which, but just for the record, the wine is for you. Okay? Well done. Thank you so much. It's the one thing I wanted to do all night. I'm going to give you a round of applause. Edward, would you mind coming up for a bow? And all of you together. And I just want to get a photo of you. as you do. Is that okay? Well done. Just give me 1 second. Just talk among yourselves. Thanks so much, Noel. Okay. We're going to get 2, 1, and 2. Thank you very much. Well done.
Brilliant.
Well done, guys. You'll get your reward in heaven. It's over there.
Right. Okay.